Hey everybody, it's Russ. Coming at you right here from McKamey Manor. You can call it mind control, you can call it hypnosis, whatever you want to say, and whatever you want to believe. It doesn't matter. Just realize that I get my results.
Imagine being on the hunt for a terrifying haunted house. You want a real thrill, not just some plastic skeletons and jump scares. While looking for frightening attractions, you come across something that stands out from the rest, with media coverage exclaiming that this is the scariest haunted experience around, videos of people telling you you don't want to come here,
Really don't want to do this.
and posts from this guy, Russ McKamey, the owner and creator of McKamey Manor. Deemed to be an extreme haunt, McKamey Manor piques your interest, oddly only costing a bag of dog food to get you in. You think, what's the harm in trying it out? You request to join his Facebook group, which seems to hold a community of others who also enjoy haunted thrills, but then a feeling of disappointment emerges within you when you find out that there is a waiting list for this mysterious attraction. It could be a very long time before it's your turn to visit McKamey Manor, since he claims that McKamey Manor holds a waiting list of over 20,000 people. But then, the next thing you know, you're in direct contact with Russ, and he is willing to offer for you to skip ahead of the line and be the very next contestant in what feels like some kind of game show or challenge. How special and lucky you must feel to be picked out of 20,000 people to get ahead of the line. But when the time comes to finally take your turn at McKamey Manor, it's nothing like you expected. You realize that visiting this place was a true mistake. McKamey Manor is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a very long time, and just unfortunately, it was always put on the back burner. And listen, I know it's no longer spooky season, but I have been delaying this video for way too long. So move over, Krampus. We have something scarier to talk about this holiday season. There seems to be so much more information released regarding McKamey Manor, despite this topic being so well discussed for almost a decade at this point. Hello, Shadow. Yeah? Documentaries have been released onto Hulu about Russ and McKamey Manor. A YouTuber known as Reckless Ben has done a series of himself infiltrating the manor and exposing the truth about it, with several other people who I will be linking in the description of this video for you to check out. We will be getting into that more later. And McKamey Manor seems to finally be at its end. But before we get into any of that, let's go back to the beginning. Who is Russ McKamey? What is McKamey Manor? And why does this seem to be the most controversial haunted experience that anybody has ever heard of? Russ McKamey is a very interesting person. Russ has explained how he has always had two really big interests. The first was spooky experiences, haunted houses, pretty much anything scary. And the second was to entertain. Okay, not to go off on a tangent, but his music videos that are randomly sprinkled throughout the torture videos, when you put them all together, they sound like a late night album commercial that you would fall asleep to back in 2003.
Imagine owning the world's greatest love songs.
Introducing Russ McKamey singing about random things after making people traumatized. With classics like What the F Is This?
Turn your thoughts away from
And an all-time favorite, I Have No Idea What's Going On.
I think you better come here, let me guide you through the purple rain.
During an interview with a creator named Scurryface, Russ shared that even during his time working in the Navy, he would make his own haunts on the ships.
I jumped in the Navy for 23 years, and I was doing haunts even out to sea. It didn't matter where I was. I was doing them on the ships for the for the guys, so it didn't matter. If I was in a one-bedroom apartment, I was doing a haunt. It did not matter.
As somebody who loves spooky and scary things myself, I love haunted houses. If I knew nothing else about Russ McKamey aside from this one single fact, I would think that he was awesome. But unfortunately, ignorance is bliss, and I'm not feeling very blissful right now, because the reality is he seems to be a complete and total monster. You see, at the start of McKamey Manor, things seemed like like your average haunted house, scares for the whole family. But over the years, the manor turned from a family-friendly, spooky event into something treacherous. Russ deemed his manor to be an extreme haunt for adults only, and with every passing year, it became more and more traumatizing. So, during your typical haunted attraction, your haunted houses, haunted hay rides, mazes, what have you, there usually seem to be rules set into place. For example, usually when going through your average haunted house, the actors in the haunted house are not allowed to touch you or harm you in any way. But after looking into this, I've discovered that there are more than just your average haunted house attractions. They seem to come in different levels, and the level that McKamey Manor now seems to fall under is considered an extreme haunt. For such thing to take place, consent forms and waivers need to be signed in order for those who operate the haunted attraction to not get into legal trouble. This is also the case with Russ McKamey and McKamey Manor. For example, McKamey Manor is known to have a waiver that is about 40 pages long, detailing all the things that they may do to you throughout your experience, such as restraining you, putting bugs on you, putting you in what looks to be a torture chamber, potentially causing severe harm to you both physically and psychologically, and so much worse. But this would all be done in the name of a fright or entertainment and fun. By signing these waivers, Russ and his actors were basically allowed to do anything they wanted to the visitors of McKamey Manor, or so he thought, because it very much seems that he and his actors have taken things way too far, but it would take a very long time for anything to actually be done about it. McKamey Manor is not the only extreme haunt out there, but it is well known due to its very unethical methods. In my opinion, if you want to experience an extreme haunt where people are able to go beyond the boundaries of just popping out and scaring you, that is your choice to make. That is something for you to decide. I'm not here to say you should or shouldn't do anything like that. Do whatever makes you happy as long as you're being safe. What really seems to be the issue in this circumstance is that Russ seems to teeter on this edge of consent with these forms. Many people who have gone through the manor and have spoken up about it have stated that they were not expecting the things that they had gone through when signing these papers. And Russ had taken it as, well, they've signed these papers, so I could do whatever I want. That's not necessarily the case. On top of this, within Russ's waivers, it points out a requirement to get a physical and psychological screening. I'm really curious about the details regarding the required physical and psychological screenings prior to going through this manor. The doctors that were doing the physical and psychological screenings, were they just doing a regular physical, signing out a physical form to provide to Russ? Did they have any idea what they were sending their patient to go through? Was there some sort of form that Russ had created for the doctors and potential psychologists doing these screenings? Or was it just a, hey, look, I'm healthy, here's my medical records type of thing? After seeing all the footage, reading the waivers, hearing about how torturous this attraction really can be, people still signed up for it. Many would travel from all over the country, some even internationally, to experience the manor for themselves. Some even saw it as a challenge. There's been a lot of negative attention around McKamey Manor for quite some time. In fact, so many people have been disgusted by Russ's tactic that over the years, several petitions have been made with hundreds of thousands signing to try and get the manor taken down. But to some horror enthusiasts, this may have given them an even bigger incentive to visit McKamey Manor. Despite the negative attention, McKamey Manor was still running for quite some time, at least in one way or another. McKamey Manor's peak success took place years ago in California. As more years passed and his haunts grew more extreme, Russ would record contestants being tormented and terrified. He would show himself and his actors traumatizing people. I'm obviously not going to show any graphic footage here due to YouTube's guidelines. I will say it is very accessible online and easy to find. I'm just not showing it here, not just for YouTube's guidelines, but also for the sake of any of you watching that might not want to see that, because it does get pretty graphic. Anything that I do show will be heavily blurred and censored out just for the sake of context. Skipping time a little bit, Russ eventually relocated to Tennessee, where he would also apparently have a second location in Alabama. In these new locations, Russ continued to challenge his visitors of McKamey Manor. The challenge Russ proposed to anybody visiting the manor was, number one, like he mentioned previously, no entry cost, but donating a bag of dog food for a Greyhound association.
Price of admission for this 8-hour plus adventure? Well, sit down, it's a doozy. 4 cans of dog food or a bag of dog food, which we donate to Operation Greyhound Rescue to help out all the old Greyhound dogs. So it goes to a very good cause.
Oh, how sweet. What a great guy. That totally excuses everything we have to talk about today. No, it doesn't. Number 2, compared to most haunted attractions that usually last an hour or so, the extreme haunt of McKamey Manor would last up to 8 hours long. Number 3, if you make it through the haunt, you would win $20,000. Now, as far as I'm aware, nobody has won such prize. At the Tennessee location, Russ claimed to have live animals, a 2-mile-long zip line, an underwater haunted house, and many other things that ended up not being real whatsoever. The only thing that was real was that people were getting hurt during these haunts. This caused an increase in concern not just from viewers online, but neighbors as well.
These neighbors, who asked not to be identified, said they're afraid to let their 7-year-old daughter outside anymore with what they've seen here in the past 2 months.
Yet tours still continued. Russ would have people apply to visit through his Facebook group. A creator known as D'Angelo Wallace actually made a video about joining this group a few years ago. D'Angelo wasn't able to get in using his real account, so he created a fake Facebook with fake images and revealed a lot of information behind this page. I'll link his video down below so you can check it out if you haven't already. What I believe is due to that circumstance, the security on that Facebook group had grown much more strict. At one point, requiring you to send in a video of yourself, I suppose to prove that you are who you identify as well as FaceTimes or video calls with Russ directly to provide more information about yourself if you are serious about visiting the manor. Quite a few people have come forward sharing their experiences, and many had something in common. They were pushed ahead of the line. According to Russ, there's supposedly over 20,000 people who want to tour McKamey Manor. Many people who spoke up about the manor explained how after speaking to him, he bumped them up to the front of the line, including Reckless Ben, and I'm assuming his friends as well because of the trolling they did later on in their series, but more on that in a minute. Through video calls, Russ would interview and become well acquainted with the people who would eventually visit McKamey Manor. Russ would find out people's traumas and fears through these interviews, which he would later use against them psychologically during their visit to the manor.
A lot of things I did in the military involved interrogation and other fun little things that work within the mind. You can call it mind control, you can call it hypnosis, whatever you want to say. And whatever you want to believe, it doesn't matter. Just realize that I get my results. Once you're inside the real show, it's not physical at all. But I do need to know what you're about prior to going in. Because every show is different, and I will make your show specific to what you can and cannot do. I actually want you to last as long as possible.
Many have pointed out that Russ had given the worst treatment towards women as well as those who have served in the military. Now, if I remember correctly, this was also mentioned in the Hulu documentary, and even in that documentary, there were some clips that showed Russ tormenting people in some of the most disturbing ways. Another creator who goes by Savannah Marie on YouTube had also made a very thorough and well-informed video on Russ and McKamey Manor. In her video, not only does she share more details regarding the victims of McKamey Manor itself, but also went into detail about the women who Russ had relationships with. Not only are there claims that he had treated some of those women horribly, but there have also been many accusations from several different women that Russ would tell them about having wildly inappropriate thoughts and fantasies about kids. Allegedly.
Yeah, he fantasizes about kids, and whatever woman is in his clutches, he's gonna tell his dirty fantasies to.
You know, he would have these dreams about young boys, young girls, and he would wake me up and say, please tell me it doesn't mean anything. And
sometimes he would tell me that he had inappropriate thoughts about kids, and he couldn't help it. He would ask me to tell him that it was okay, or that nothing means nothing. His descriptions at first were really vague, and then slowly as time went by, became much more explicit.
He would go to Walmart while I was there shopping, and he would just be looking at kids in in dresses and skirts, girls, boys, teenagers.
I want to make it clear that these, however, are just claims as far as I am aware, but I will link Savannah Marie's video down below for you to see, as she shares much more information regarding this and so much more when it comes to his relationships. After one woman had visited McKamey Manor, her face looked extraordinarily swollen, as did her lips. Her hair was shaved, and it almost looked like there were some sort of injury to her scalp. It looked very, very painful.
Hey everyone, this is Laura coming to you live from my hotel room after I just entered the McKamey Manor chamber. Wow. As you can see by the way I look, my lips, this is no joke. It's no laughing matter. For all of you that really want to do this, trust me, you don't. You do not want to do this. My face hurts pretty bad. I can't tell if my nose is broken, but you can see my lips. My tattoo got torn. My knee, if you can see it.
While in this state, she recorded an endorsement, for lack of a better term, for McKamey Manor, saying that she loved the manor, she loved the guys that did this to her, and that she had an exhilarating time. She later recanted those statements and had this to say instead.
I really don't have much words to say right now, except for this was one of the most exhilarating experiences of my life. I will never forget it. I just want to say, Russ, Carol, Lindsay, Beth, Ryan, Mike, Christopher, Mr. Green, Mr. White, all of you so much that I love you dearly.
Russ is by far one of the most manipulative men, even human being that I've ever come across. There's a part of me that I don't think I hope that I will recover from, but inside of me and in my soul, I don't think I ever will, unless I see Russ McKamey in prison for the rest of his life. And I'd also like to see the actors that did this to me also pay the penalty of what they did. It wasn't just Russ, but it was the actors too.
This is on the McKamey Manor Exposed YouTube channel, which I will link in the description below as well. They have a lot of information shared over there exposing McKamey Manor. In fact, it seems that everyone who goes through the manor is recorded saying they liked it, or that it kicked their ass in some variation of hyping it up. It was later reported by some of the people who have spoken out against McKamey Manor that they felt pressured to make these videos, or that Russ allegedly wouldn't let them leave until they made these exit videos. Other women have come forward on YouTube, in interviews with creators like Reckless Ben, and in documentaries like Hulu's Monster Inside: America's Most Extreme Haunted House, which is the documentary about McKamey Manor and Russ McKamey himself. It's speculated that the exit footage was used to prevent investigations from taking place. Because sure, the people in the videos looked brutalized, but they said they had fun, so... This is another clip that I've stumbled upon. This was again re-uploaded to the McKamey Manor Exposed page. I did not see this full video, but what is shown here absolutely sickens me. I will be blurring out the footage, but listen to what Russ says.
So, is this real life or is this a game? That's right. It's not real, right? So what do you tell the police if they come here and see this? What do you tell them?
Game, sir.
It's a game.
There's also another fear that people seem to have when speaking out about McKamey Manor, especially those who have visited the manor itself, which is the fact that Russ seems to have a very loyal following, and he seems to label anybody who criticizes, questions, or has anything negative to say about the manor as a hater.
This one's important to watch. It's all about a hater. And we like our haters.
And then his fans seem to follow through with a lot of harassment, sending hate, and even threatening some of the people who speak out against it. Some who have spoken out have even expressed concern about their own careers and lives due to the level of these threats that some of McKamey Manor's and Russ's followers have made. As backlash continued to grow worse over the years, things started to fall apart for McKamey Manor. By this point, actors who worked for Russ dropped like flies. There seemed to be less footage of his supposed haunted house, and anybody who tried to visit the manor would end up covered in paint and humiliated while doing ridiculous workouts and having things like goggles that invert your vision or shock collars put on them. True action against Russ McKamey and McKamey Manor wouldn't step into motion until this year, 2023. A new wave of attention would be brought onto Russ McKamey by two different sources. One would be the documentary done by Hulu. While it wasn't the first documentary on Russ or McKamey Manor, it was one of the few that showed the truth about what he was doing and actually interviewing some of the victims instead of saying, "Oh boy, this is such a scary and haunted attraction, you definitely don't want to come here." Another huge breakthrough was made with the hard work of a creator known as Reckless Ben, as well as his friends and colleagues. Together, they were able to unveil the truth behind McKamey Manor, many details being things that most people had already expected, which is that a lot of what Russ advertised in McKamey Manor appeared to be fake. McKamey Manor doesn't even seem to be a manor anymore, or a haunted house for that matter. It's just a yard where he makes people dress up in onesies, puts paint all over them, and makes them work out until they're physically exhausted. The haunted house aspect seems to be non-existent. He just seems to like tormenting people.
Oh my gosh! A floating shopping list! Ah! I'm not a shopping list! I'm a ghost!
I won't go over every detail because I think that you really should watch Reckless Ben's videos covering this entire thing if you're interested in this topic. Again, I'll link Reckless Ben's channel in the description below. But to sum things up in a very brief way, Reckless Ben, a YouTuber who makes online series about things like cults and Scientology, decided to take on the challenge of infiltrating McKamey Manor and exposing the truth about it. Just as many others have come forward about McKamey Manor, shortly after applying, Ben was moved to the top of the list of people who wanted to see McKamey Manor. So he was pushed to the front of the line over 20,000 other people to get into this. Now, Russ was suspicious of Ben because he had seen his YouTube channel and his expose videos on things like Scientology and other cults, so he was a little bit on edge. But he ultimately trusted Ben after Ben had signed a non-disclosure agreement, otherwise known as an NDA, the same NDA that I imagine everybody else had signed, except it wasn't actually the same. You see, if it were the same as the other NDAs that Russ made everyone sign, then Ben would have had to pay around $50,000 if he were to share any information about what had gone on with McKamey Manor publicly. However, Ben decided that before sending the signed copy of the NDA back to Russ, that he would actually do a little edit and change that $50,000 to $1, one singular dollar. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if this is something that would hold up in court if Russ really wanted to go after him for breaking the NDA, but I will say that it is a document that Russ signed, so Russ should have read it to see if anything was changed. Either way, it was pretty ballsy of Ben to do this in the first place, knowing full well that Russ very well could have read it and his entire plan would have crumbled right there. He took a chance and succeeded, and that seems to be the entirety of his series. He really puts himself at risk through a lot of situations to try and get this information out there for the rest of the world to see, and I respect that a lot. He also added in this contract that at the end of this, Russ would have to get pizza with him, which is like an ongoing joke throughout the entire series. Once Ben gets to McKamey Manor, just as expected, he was covered in paint, he had these weird vision-inverting goggles put on him, and was instructed to do pretty intense-looking workouts, including crawling in a trench with a giant drum on his back while singing, and they made him wear a shock collar on his ankle. And then later, he was waterboarded. I'm not joking, he was literally waterboarded at Russ's McKamey Manor. Here's the thing though, technically none of this was the actual McKamey Manor, because all of these stunts were essentially prerequisites to get into McKamey Manor. So all of the stunts that they had put Ben through up to this point was prior to him stepping foot in the actual McKamey Manor. That's weird. Why are you advertising having a terrifying haunted house when you're not going to let anybody see it, and instead you make them do jumping jacks in ridiculous outfits with a lot of ridiculous equipment in your front yard?
Dad, when do we get to the ride?
This is the ride! Yippee!
After so much trial, eventually Ben is allowed in what seemed to be the entrance to the supposed haunted house that everybody has been dying to see, only for the battery on the phone recording this entire thing to allegedly start dying conveniently at that exact point in time. So they ended up cutting things early, and Ben was never able to get the full experience of this haunted house despite not being the one to have quit. They ended the tour and escorted Ben in his car to go home. But this was not the end of things, not by a long shot. After Ben's tour, he got a buddy to apply for McKamey Manor as well. That would be Danny Burke, another person who seems to endure lots of intense physical challenges. And the same process takes place. He ends up getting pushed to the front of the line. Over 20,000 people, definitely not suspicious at all. And he is given the same tasks as Ben was with doing the workouts before entering the manor. But this time, Danny started begging Russ to just let him inside the haunted house. Russ got very defensive during this, and eventually the tour was cut short. Ben, Danny, and a group of their friends continued investigating the manor while now being on Russ's radar. They had more people to go in to eventually get kicked out, but they also turned up the heat. Things have escalated by Ben buying Russ's copyright, interviewing people who worked for Russ at McKamey Manor, somehow gaining access to admin levels on Russ's Facebook page, and most importantly, obtaining a hard drive that belonged to Russ that showed the full uncut video footage of what he had done to people during their visits to the manor, because what Russ uploaded to YouTube seemed a little trimmed and polished. Just like with any other footage, I will obviously not be showing that footage in this video. Some of the footage is in Ben's newest video, but I assume that even that was toned back for legal reasons. At least that's what it seems to be by what he implied, as well as respect for those who were recorded during these visits and whether or not they wanted the information and video footage out themselves, and because YouTube would probably have their footage taken down immediately if they showed the most graphic of it all. That's under my assumption that there are things more graphic than what was actually shown in Ben's video, because we don't know what wasn't shown. I will tell you that one of the clips shown was a man being dragged through the ground by a truck and other extraordinarily dangerous situations that led people with very serious injuries. In Ben's latest video, at least at the time of recording this, he claims that this information was sent to authorities. Now, there is allegedly an active investigation into McKamey Manor. It wasn't just due to this hard drive, though. It seemed like there were other things involved, such as the safety factors of his property. Could you imagine the irony of doing all of these things that physically and mentally harm other people, and then getting investigated due to the location not being safe? What? There is also speculation that Russ had relationships with the police that allowed him to continue this for as long as it did, but that has not been confirmed or denied by Russ or anybody at his local police department. But the good news is that it does seem that authorities are finally investigating this guy and his barbaric haunted house or haunted front yard. Because the haunting part really isn't there anymore. It just seems like he's treating people horrendously, recording it, and putting it online. I'm going to link Ben's and Danny's channel in the description below. I highly recommend that you check both of them out. They've done a wonderful job at putting all of this together. It looks like such a lot of hard work, and I also commend all of their other friends who were involved in this as well. It doesn't seem like things are going to slow down with McKamey Manor anytime soon. It seems like now that an investigation is supposed to be taking place at this current moment, more information can come out more information might not come out for a while. It really seems to be up in the air at this point because investigations can sometimes take a while. Regardless, without their hard work, a lot of this would not come to light, so again, I highly recommend checking out their channels below. This isn't just any random YouTube expose video. There are many claims of Russ harming people both physically and psychologically. McKamey Manor is a place that desperately needs intervention, and without these guys, it might not have happened, or if it did, it probably would have taken much longer. And with that being said, it's also important to acknowledge that without every single creator who has spoken up about McKamey Manor, it is likely that networks like Hulu and people like Reckless Ben wouldn't know about McKamey Manor. So what I'm trying to say is that anybody who has talked about this has also played a really important role that has led up to this point. It's a bit too early to say if this is going to be the last we see of Russ for now, or if he will actually receive any charges for what he has done. What I, and I assume many others, hope for is that the people that Russ hurt get some sort of justice in this situation, and that Russ is never able to harm anybody again, whether it be through McKamey Manor or his own tactics. Russ had a sick and twisted way of trying to entertain others, but the truth was, the entertainment just seemed to be for himself. He seems to take great joy in torturing others with his extreme haunt with no regard for what they actually feel in the situation. It's also very apparent that even before the investigation started, Russ did not seem to really have this haunted house anymore. It seems like he had some sort of real attraction in California, as there was video footage of people going through this makeshift haunted house. But over the past decade, once things became more intense, and especially since the relocation took place, there has been no evidence, at least to my knowledge, of McKamey Manor even existing at this point. It's just some sad man in his front yard, traumatizing people and exhausting them. There is so much more that I can get into when it regards Russ McKamey or McKamey Manor, but that would cause this video to go on for hours. But I hope that this video was able to provide you a basic understanding of everything that has been going on. Thank you so much if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, and thank you so much to everybody supporting me over on Patreon, and thank you to anybody who has provided a super thanks. I hope that so far you've been having a great December. I have a few more videos planned before the end of the year, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much once again, and with that being said, I will see you in the next video.